Hello everyone, we are Group 5. Today we are going to present a writing assessment design question for literature component. First of all, let's focus on selected text. The assessment is based on two literary tests. The first test is Turning 30 by Mingfeng Hu, which is a post-test that explores family relationships, its solution, and the treatment of elderly family members. The second test is London by William Black, a poem that highlights social oppression, poverty, and injustice in 18th century London. These two tests were selected because they contain meaningful themes and provide opportunities for students to demonstrate literary understanding, analysis, and evaluation. The purpose of this assessment is to evaluate students' ability to understand, interpret, analyze, and respond to literary texts. Students are expected to identify themes and ideas, explain feelings and relationships, analyze language and imaginary, and evaluate message using textual evidence. The assessment follows CEFR-oriented literature learning outcomes and is intended for Form 2 learners within the A2 to B1 proficiency range. The assessment consisted of 4 questions based on 2 texts. Question 1A focuses on interpreting characters' feelings and relationships. Question 1B requires students to evaluate the themes of respect for the elderly. Question 2A focuses on analyzing language, imagery, and poetic techniques, while Question 2B requires students to evaluate the poem's social criticism. The table also shows the CEFR-aligned reading demands and the progression from A2 level interpretation to B1 level evaluation. The assessment is built around the 3 reading constructs. First, the reading for interpretation requires students to identify and explain feelings, attitudes, and relationships. Second, reading for analysis requires students to explain how language, imagery, tone, and other literature features create meaning. Third, reading for evaluation requires students to form judgments about the themes and message and support their responses with textual evidence. These constructs reflect the skills expected in CEFR-oriented literature learning. The assessment is organized into low, medium, and high difficulty levels. Low-level tasks focus on basic understanding and identification of explicit information. Medium-level tasks require interpretation and analysis of literary features. High-level tasks require evaluation, personal judgments, and evidence-based reasoning. This progression helps students move gradually from comprehension to more advanced literary thinking. In conclusion, this assessment was designed to be appropriate for Form 2 students and aligned with CEFR A2 to B1 reading descriptors. The assessment encourages students to move beyond basic comprehension by interpreting meanings, analyzing literary features, and evaluating themes and messages. By using a holistic rubric and a gradual progression of difficulty, the assessment provides a balanced and meaningful way to evaluate students' literary reading skills.
Hello everyone, this is my part. For Section A, we selected the short story Turning 30 by Mingfeng Hu. Mingfeng Hu is an award-winning Asian writer who works often focused on family, relationship, and culture and humanity. This story explores important themes such as compassion, filial piety, and respect for the elderly. And for our assessment, we choose an example that highlights the old one's feeling of inclusion with her own family. Why we choose this example? Because it provides strong evidence for reading assessment. Students can clearly identify the old man's emotion and analyze how the author presents them. The most importantly, the text provides an ample evidence to support students' answer. Therefore, this exhibit helps students demonstrate their reasoning, interpretation, close reading, and text analysis skills. Now, let's move to the question A1. This is an analytical question. This question goes beyond the simple comprehension, as students need to explain how the author provides feeling of isolation and inclusion. To answer correctly, students need to identify the character's emotion, analyze the language, interpret literature technicals, and find evidence in the text to support their viewpoint. For example, comparing the old lady to TV and highlights how invisible and insignificant she feels with a family. This makes it an effective higher order reading comprehension question because students must analyze information, not just recall it. Okay, let's move to the last one, question 1b. This is the evaluating question. Students are required to, from their own judgment, about whether respect for the elderly is an important message in the story. This question assesses higher order thinking because students must evaluate ideas and justify their options with evidence from the text. Instead of focusing only on the extract, students need to consider the whole story, including the old one's security and Erlong's relationship with his mother. This allows students to demonstrate critical thinking and personal interpretation. In summary, these questions are designed to assess students' analytical and evaluative reading skills. They encourage students to thinking critical, support their answer with the evidence, and gain a deeper understanding for the text. Therefore, we believe that these are effective literature assessment questions that align with higher order thinking skills and the reading assessment objectives. Let's move to the next part.
And then I will discuss William Blank's poem London, which was published in 1794. William Blank was a romantic poet who was concerned about the social problems of this time. In this poem, he describes the difficult conditions faced by ordinary people living in London during the Industrial Revolution. And the poem mainly focuses on four themes: suffering operations, social injustice, and criticism of society. Through vivid imagery and powerful language, Blank shows how poverty, fear, and inequality affect people's lives. And in this presentation, I will discuss two examination questions based on this poem and explain why these questions were asked. So, the first question is, how does Blank present suffering and operations in London? The question focuses on the lecture analysis. Students are expected to explain how Blank uses language, imagery, symbolism, and other lecture devices to present his ideas. And Blank presents suffering through the experience of ordinary people. For example, he writes marks of weakness, marks of war. The repetition of these word marks emphasizes that pain and sadness can be seen on every face in London. He also mentions Invent's cry of fear, which shows that even the innocent children experience fear and suffering. This suggests that social problems affect everyone, regardless of age. To present operations, Blank uses the metaphor man-folk manacles. The word manacles means chains. Here, Blank suggests that people are mentally trapped by society, poverty, and social systems. Therefore, Blank presents suffering and operations through imagery, repetition, and symbolism, showing that pain and social control affect people in London.
The second question is, London is powerful criticism of society. To what extent do you agree? This question focuses on critical thinking and evaluation. Students need to give their opinion and support it with evidence from the poem. I strongly agree that London is powerful criticism of this society. Firstly, blank criticize the church through the phrase, every blanking church apples. This suggests that the church has failed to help people who are suffering. Secondly, he criticized the government through the image run in blood down palace walls. Black implies that those in power are responsible for the suffering of ordinary citizens, especially soldiers. Finally, Black criticized society itself through the oxymoron. Marriage hints. Marriage usually symbolizes love and new beginnings, while hints is assisted with death. By combining these two ideas, Black suggests that society has become corporate by poverty, disease, and inequality. Therefore, I strongly agree that London is a powerful criticism of social because blank condemns the church, the government, and the social inequality through vivid imagery and symbols. So in conclusion, Blank presents London as a city filled with suffering and oppressions, while also criticizing the institution responsible for these problems. Through powerful imagery and symbolism, he encourages the reader to reflect on social injustice and inequality. Thank you very much. Let's move to the next part.
The holistic rubric we designed it based on reading skills. There are 6 levels from excellent to very weak. So for the level 6 excellent, the students must show a great understanding while reading the text, and it must have accurate and insightful interpretation of ideas and the meaning from the text. And for level 5, it is good. It should show clear understanding of text with relevant interpretation of meaning and ideas. For level 4, it is satisfactory. It must show based understanding of text with some text and some correct meanings or interpretation of the words. For level 3, it is limited. The students will show only a limited understanding while reading, and maybe it will have some unclear interpretation of their ideas. For level 2, it is weak. It shows minimal understanding of text with very limited interpretation. Maybe the students can't really understand what the text is going to say. And for level 1, it is very weak. It shows only a little, or there's basically no understanding of the text while reading. So the whole level is from 58 to 65, it is level 6. For 50 to 57, it is level 5. For 40 to 49, it is level 4. 30 to 39, it is level 3. 20 to 29, it is level 2. And for very weak level 1, it is 0 to 19. Okay, now let's see the answer scheme for section A, question 1A. It is having 14 marks for total, and it has 3 parts, separate parts. Each of them will have 5 points. So first of all, the student needs to identify relevant information showing the isolation and exclusion in the text. And then they also need to demonstrate their understanding of the text, like the meaning. It should be explicit and implicit ideas. Last but not least, the student needs to support their answer with accurate textual details or references that can be found in the text. So the total points will be 15 marks. For section A, question 1B, the total point is 20 marks, and it have 4 separate parts. Each of the parts are having 5 marks. So first, the students will show a clear understanding of the statement and overall message. And then they also need to identify the relevant ideas about relationship and treatment of the characters that in the text. And they also need to demonstrate understanding of events, situations, and character behaviors. They also need to use relevant textual details to support their understanding and their answers. For section B, question 2A, the total marks is 15, and it's having 3 separate parts. Each of the part have 5 marks. So students need to identify key example of suffering and oppression in the poem, and they need to show the understanding of meanings of words, phrases, and images. Also, the most important one, students need to use accurate textual references to support their understanding and their answers. For section B, question 2B, the total marks is 15 marks. So there are 3 separate parts that are having 4 marks for each, and the fourth part is 3 marks only. So for the first one, the students need to show overall understanding of the poem's message, and then they need to identify the main ideas about society in the poem. Also, they need to show understanding meanings of key images and references. Last, they need to present ideas in a clear and coherent way based on their reading of the text.